All right, what's going on YouTube? So I was on Twitter this morning, as you do. I do my little daily routine, getting ready to start the day, when I popped across this little tweet right here. And somebody had mentioned that Strive early releases out, the instant block had been made more difficult. They basically made the instant block window from 3 frames in the open beta to 2 frames. And if you haven't tried this shit yourself, I really implore you to do it. There's actually a part of the tutorial mode that gets you to instant block and move 5 times. It's hard. It's like really hard. I sat there for like 15 minutes the other day just trying to like, am I doing it wrong? Am I stupid? Am I the only one who thinks that this is like more difficult? And for all intents and purposes, this tweet kind of confirms that it was. But then I saw people responding to it, talking about, this goes against the idea that, Strive is supposed to be an accessible fighting game, and, fighting game publishers and developers are lying to their customer base as a marketing ploy to, sell more copies. The game's not really that accessible. Red flag, baby. Yeah, that seems kind of like a red flag. I thought about it for a second. I was like, that doesn't seem right, does it? I mean, that would be some like really deep web shit. Like they use this term as a ploy to get people to buy the game. That doesn't seem right. So I really thought about it for a moment, and I was like, well, instant block in Guilty Gear or any game seems like more of an advanced mechanic, right? Something that someone picking up the game is not going to sit down day one like, oh, I can instant block. I'm kind of nice. All right, yeah. So this doesn't really seem like an accessibility issue, at least to me anyway. And if I'm wrong, the comments are down there, so yeah, I know you guys will go ham anyway. But I don't think it's something that players are gonna be doing from the get-go. It's week 1, but this doesn't seem like something that I even have. I'm not saying that I'm a pro, but something that I've kind of got down, or I think anybody else I've played online has kind of got down. So here's what I did, and I'm sorry. I think this is really corny when people do this during talks, but I had to look this up just for myself to make sure that I didn't have the definition wrong. So I actually looked up what accessibility means, and I'll do this. I'll save you the legwork. And two definitions here. I don't really care about the second one. I mean, you can use it, but number one, to be able to be reached or entered. So when we're talking about making fighting games accessible, what we're really talking about is making it so that people can get into the door. That's fighting games by themselves are already hard enough. So just getting people in the door to play the game is kind of a struggle. And, when I talk about, the skill involved in a fighting game, I think of it as, a floor and a ceiling. And it's important to make the distinction about, these two terms. So, when I'm thinking about, the skill, the length of skill, the amount of skill that it takes to play a fighting game, I think of it as like a floor and a ceiling. And a good fighting game, has both of those, of course. But a really good fighting game is set up so that the floor is actually at ground level. So you don't need a ladder to climb up to actually play the game on some Clarissa explains it all shit. But yeah, like I said, fighting games are hard to the point where anybody can watch and like, wow, that's really cool. But actually doing that stuff in a match is really hard. And again, I like to think of it as a 3-story house. Like a really well-made fighting game is like a nice 3-story house. You got the ground floor, which is where the guests come in, they stay for a bit, and then if they don't like it, they leave. You got the second floor, which is kind of like for the family, the FGC folks here, and then I guess you say the long-term FGC folks. And then you've got the attic, where your weird grandpa won't shut up about Vega wall dives in Street Fighter 2 or whatever. And I think that this is probably like the best example that I can come up with of a well-made game that has a good skill ceiling, but game that has a really good or really well-made skill floor, as well as like a really high skill ceiling, so that there is that gap, and that players who play longer and who practice are rewarded, and players who start out have a base to start out and actually improve. And yeah, I'll say it. Devs don't always get it right. Like, take Street Fighter V at launch. Now it's much better, but at launch, when it came out, they tried to tackle the issue of accessibility, and commercially, I think they kind of hit the nail on the head. The issue was that instead of getting this, beautiful 3-story house, the game overall, the skill gap was like, narrowed, compressed to the point where the only way you could, get in there is if, you tried to, drop the ring off at Mordor or whatever. And so, yeah, people were, the hardcore fans were pretty pissed off. But, it got a lot of new people into the game, I think. One of the issues that you run is that when you make the game's skill floor too low, you end up compressing the skill ceiling at the same time because the game isn't that deep. Then you piss off your hardcore fan base, and those are your people who you ride or die. So whether the house is, again, Bilbo Baggins' place or the Malibu Beach house, they're always going to be there regardless, no matter how cramped it is. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Hopefully what I've tried to convey here is that the idea of instant blocking being more difficult to do isn't really an accessibility issue. At least in my mind, it isn't. And again, the comments exist below, so go ham. I think that that's an issue of mastery, where it's something you're going to be doing once you've gotten better at the basics of the game. It's something you can spend some time focusing on and putting some work into, so that you again can improve and progress up that skill gap. I will say that Strive does a lot of things right as far as accessibility. I think that one of the best examples I can think of right off the bat is their dash macro. How hard was it back in the day to instant dash? I remember for years, the first time I played an air dash, I was like, how do people do this on command? It just doesn't feel comfortable or fluid for me at all. And it took a long time to get there. And now that players can just hold up and press, the dash buttons, 1, 2, it's so nice. Another thing, again, the tutorial mode. The first thing I did when I loaded the game up was I went through the entire tutorial mode, and there's a ton of good information in there. I even put up a couple tweets beforehand. Editor Son, there's a tweet I made about Zato's tutorial tips, if you can grab that. But yeah, I think they do a lot of things right, and it's tight, in my opinion. I love it, and I just hope that people, complaining that things like this aren't accessible because, it's harder to instant block. You're not instant blocking anyway, who cares? But yeah, also, whatever side of the fence you are on Strive, if Strive is a true GG game, that's whatever to me. I don't really care. But at least to me, I think that it does seem to be a pretty well-made, accessible game, and we shouldn't be mistaking high-level stuff for accessibility. Yeah, that's all I want to say. This is kind of like a hodgepodge, quick talk thrown together. But let me know your thoughts below. I mean, do you agree? I mean, is this an example of developers lying to their fan base to sell more copies because it's more accessible? Is this an issue of mastery? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff you can discuss here, and I'll be down there in the comments talking with you guys. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all be good, and bye-bye.